Hi, everybody. Welcome to our program, Food Choices for a Small Planet, Sustainable Diet and Food Waste Practices for Families and Communities. I am Linda Lidor, representing the East Brunswick chapter of Hadassah. A huge shout out to our co-sponsors, the East Brunswick Public Library, and in particular to Melissa Hosek. Friends of the East Brunswick Environmental Commission and Friends of the Library. Thanks also to EBTV, Brian and Anthony. We really appreciate your help. And also your help in dealing with the technologically unsuited, so thank you. Thanks, of course, to our distinguished guests here who are sharing their expertise. Thanks also to Chris Sullivan, who's here on behalf of Hadassah, the Friends of the East Brunswick Environmental Commission, and the third hat she's wearing is Alpha Delta Kappa, who is very active in sustainability tests. Thanks also to Holly Cerami, who's here representing the, Holly, can you help me out here? Yeah, thank you. This program is being presented as part of the Option Green series, the partnership between East Brunswick Public Library and the Friends of the East Brunswick Environmental Commission. Let me start with two quotes, first from the New York Times and the second from a UN climate article. This is the one from the New York Times. Small changes from being a high meat eater to a low meat eater can make a huge difference in environmental impact. This one is from the UN climate report. Think about how you buy, prepare, and dispose of food. When you throw away food, you're wasting energy, land, water, and fertilizer that was used to produce it, package, and transport it. Although the issue of food and the environment is indeed a very complicated one with many, many layers, to quote from a slide you will be seeing, this is a problem everyone can help to solve. It's a huge problem, but we can do our bit to help solve it. Let me introduce our first speaker, Dr. Yvette Schlussel. Dr. Yvette Schlussel is an epidemiologist and biostatistician. She has a broad background in quantitative and qualitative methods with specific training and expertise in the analysis of clinical trials and observational studies. With a PhD from Columbia University, Yvette started her career as an NIH postdoctoral fellow at the Weill College of Medicine of Cornell University, where she later joined the faculty of medicine and carried out psychosocial and survey research and primary data analysis in a variety of cardiovascular studies in adult men and women in the area of job stress and high blood pressure at 10 New York City organizations. Since coming to Rutgers in 2002, she expanded her research areas to include changes associated with weight loss on the skeletal system, especially in older women. For 20 years, she taught physicians community medicine in hospitals in New York City. Her community work also extended to New Brunswick, where she was a co-investigator on a study of obesity prevention in overweight women and children. For the past 20 years, she has been teaching evidence-based medicine, epidemiology, and biostatistics to medical students, residents, and physicians, exposing them to the appropriate analytical methods and reporting on a wide variety of clinical trials in over 35 reviewed medical publications. As a researcher and instructor to physicians studying clinical trial methodology at Beth Israel Mount Sinai Medical Centers, she has specialized in the teaching of culturally competent methods to collect and analyze data from minority populations. She has a record of successful and productive research projects at the Rutgers School of Biological and Environmental Sciences and is interested in using her studies which impact the community in positive ways. Dr. Schlussel is a longtime participant in the East Brunswick Community Garden. She's a member of the East Brunswick Environmental Condition. As the daughter of a chef, she has a lifelong interest in food and nutrition.
Thank you very much for that overly long introduction. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Option Green, Reducing Food Waste for a Healthier Future. As Linda said, this is generously sponsored by the East Brunswick Library, East Brunswick Hadassah, a local women's health organization, and the Friends of the East Brunswick Environmental Commission, to which we're very grateful. We have a wonderful program tonight with interesting speakers who will talk about the societal, community, and individual approaches to reducing food waste, which slow down the rate of climate change, a goal we all want to support. Some of you may be wondering whether food waste is a serious problem. We know that today 44 million people in America suffer hunger, or what researchers call food insecurity. They just don't have enough to eat, and this includes 1 in 5 children. Wasting food contributes to this, and we know that 40% of the food supply is wasted annually. Yet we don't do enough to divert wasted food to those who need it. And instead, we dispose of it in landfills where it rots, releases methane gas and CO2, and contributes to global warming. Preventing food waste is a worthwhile goal which saves time for shopping and cooking food and also saves money. Oops. How much do Americans waste food? Tonight, you'll hear our speakers report that $161 billion of food is wasted each year. You'll hear how food waste consumes precious resources. I'm not doing this right. Okay. And we'll find out what foods Americans tend to waste most. Also, you'll find out solutions to wasting food, what you can do about it. If you don't want to take notes or you're worried you might forget some of the valuable information that we're presenting tonight, I've provided a list of tips for preventing food waste, reducing food waste that you can take and tape inside your pantry so that you will have it as a continuous reminder. So as I said, we're going to talk about preventing food waste, and you'll learn how to understand expiration dates, what they really mean. Our speakers are going to cover that, and how organic waste can be kept out of landfills. We know, and we can learn from other places, that there are food waste bans. And in New York, they've started collecting and recycling food waste into compost. There are bins on many street corners throughout the city. We can learn also from New Jersey what they're doing about food waste. The Food Waste Reduction Act was a law that was signed in July 2017, which establishes a goal of reducing the amount of food waste generated annually by 50% by the year 2030. And then while there are some towns in New Jersey that are recycling organic waste, Hoboken being one of them, and Princeton being another one, in those towns. We can talk about this later if you're interested, what their programs are. There are pilot programs in other towns like Paramus and Ridgewood. We'll hear about where organic waste matter is recycled locally from Liti Harmati, who will join us on the panel. And we'll talk about what foods are associated with reduced environmental degradation. And we'll also get a chance to sample some of them. Those of you who visited the back can have a taste of environmentally sustainable foods. So this way, it'll be very clear that the cycle of food waste, which leads to climate change, which increases hunger in the world, can be broken. We will then have a drawing for a book to help one lucky winner in the audience learn how to cook more and waste less. And this book has really interesting and creative recipes. Before we leave, I wanted you to contemplate the idea that in nature, nothing is wasted. Even the lowly dung beetle loosens and nourishes the soil and helps to control the fly population. They can move by rolling more than 1,000 times their body weight. And they keep air pollution down and can reduce the methane emitted by cow dung by 40%. So if a little dung beetle can do all that, listen and learn that by changing your behavior, you too can each do much to reduce this global burden of food waste and leave the earth a healthier place for your children and grandchildren. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Serpil Garan. Dr. Serpil Garan is the director of Rutgers Eco Complex Clean Energy Innovation Center. She also manages the new Rutgers X Ecognite Clean Energy Proof of Concept Center and Accelerator Program. Please welcome Dr. Serpil Garan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shalaso. And so is it? Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. It's a great event. And again, thank you to Dr. Shalaso and Ms. Ledor for inviting. And so this is a great event, great subject. It's so near and dear to my heart, food waste. And so you would laugh, but seriously. So basically, food waste reduction is so important, but the expert is next to me. She will be, Dr. Maureen will talk about the reduction options, but I will be talking about what happens if you cannot reduce the food waste, because there is unavoidable food waste. Because it is important not to send the food waste to landfills or incinerators, and what to do and how to return them back into the economy, and then potentially, not potentially, actually directly mitigate the climate change, basically. So, as you can see, as Dr. Schlosser, if I may call you, mentioned that, I am the director of Rutgers Eco Complex. If you have never been to the Eco Complex, we are located in Burlington County. We are one of the Rutgers University's outlying extension research information extension centers. And we are also serving as a business incubator, and especially we are concentrating on clean energy technologies, or clean technologies, I should say. So I don't want to too much advertise about the center. We have a website you can find out. So let's talk about food waste. That's very important, and the time still limited, right? And so I just wanted to start with, related to New Jersey residents and businesses. And according to New Jersey State, we waste 3 billion pounds per year of food. We create that much, wasted food. And also the cost for New Jersey residents are around $10 billion. So that means that approximately $1,000 per person. So just why am I giving you maybe a little higher or lower the number, but just to put the importance in a context that, you know, even it is costly and we should not waste the food. And and also, as you would all, you know, appreciate, we are getting crowded, you know, world is getting crowded, right? And if not, we are not going to reach 14 billion. United Nations is expecting that world is going to reach about a little more than 9 billion people. So basically, when the population increases, demand for resources increasing, and then obviously food, energy, water, and especially food demand. They're expecting that about 60–70% increase in food demand. But also, New Jersey, researchers are saying this, New Jersey is going to experience the similar trends, but also they will be squeezed by New York is, spreading to New Jersey, and Philly is spreading, and our food, because New Jersey is a garden state, right? Our agricultural land is under threat, what they're saying this. It's very important. So it's important when we are trying to put everything in a context, really. And so I told you, urbanization at a fast pace. And when we, when we are crowded, especially in the urban areas, we also generate a lot of waste, right? And I am sure you are noticing that, especially last 10 years, we are generating more waste, maybe dry waste, packaging, a lot of waste we generate. But also we generate a lot of organic waste, wet waste, kitchen waste. Just generally, if we look into the waste generation, food waste takes an important percentage. Depending on the community where you are, and it's around food waste makes up municipal solid waste around 20%. Okay, I'm not saying 40% is food is wasted. That's a separate number. But if you think about a 1,000 ton of municipal solid waste, think about this: 20% is definitely organic food waste. So I put some more, numbers. Or a city resident, for example, generates twice as much waste as their rural counterpart of the same affluence. And then if you count the fact citizens are usually richer, you may challenge me, not all the urban citizens, but just generally, okay? I understand we have some urban locations that they are not that affluent. I understand that too, but they generate even more waste. But just to underline is, when we get crowded, we're going to have more waste, and we're going to have more organic food waste. And also, when we are getting crowded, also we're this global place now, and New Jersey is pretty diverse state, as you know. And also we're talking about food justice. Dr. Schlosser already mentioned that we have pockets of poverty, and so there are food deserts even in New Jersey. Certain towns, they don't have certain, I'm sure Dr. Maureen is going to mention, access to healthy food is so important. And we're talking about food justice. And food should be healthy, should be nutritious, and affordable, available, and accessible, and culturally acceptable also. So, this is really important. Food justice is the new thing that, around the world, people organize conference organizing. And so food justice also should be in our mind when we are throwing away something. And so it's very important. And as you know, no preaching to choir, food is expensive, especially right after COVID, right? When you go to supermarket, you pay more. And the most importantly also, my research topic also, food requires not only water, also it requires energy. And so food has energy and water footprint, because I always tell my students, or, electricity came to this room and it has a lot of water footprint. In addition to its own carbon footprint, it has a lot of water footprint indirectly, especially if it's nuclear energy, if it's coming from some parts of coal, because PJM may still have some coal generated energy in the New Jersey mix, that PJM mix. So electricity has water, but then water drinking, we have a lot of carbon footprint, right? And but the food has water and energy footprint. So that's why we have to think twice or three times. And also, as you know, food is no longer a local source, right? And when we talk about, greenhouse gas impacts, not the distance too much, yes, but also the packaging coming from far places, or even, different parts of, in the continent. So packaging and then transportation. So it's just to preserve the food also, that because of the transportation, you need to have that preserved. So food has a lot of, carbon footprint. And so I just wanted to underline that. I mentioned already that, understanding the interconnections of the food, water, and energy connections. And then always we say this because we call it food, energy, water nexus, because of the combination, or, I put that little logo in the corner, it has the food, and then I put the waste in the center. So whether or not can we expand this food, energy, water nexus concept as food, energy, water, and waste nexus, because it is important. And I mentioned that food has some water footprint, food carbon footprint. Dr. Morin will talk about further, but just to put things into context, you can, it's tons of research in the, you can find, you can go to, a lot of different, food. And so, for example, we have fish, water footprint, we have meat. Fish is not because it's in the water, but it's a lot of processing. It takes a lot of water. So that's why I'm saying this. So, also, just to give you an, not to concentrate on the numbers, but energy consumption of agri-food systems by region. So I am, it's very similar to, Europe or other parts of the world. And then this is the US related chart. And if interested, I know it's going to be available, right? Whoever is interested, these slides. And the more important part also, now I am approaching slowly on how to reutilize the food waste and how not to not to generate a food waste excessively, but then there is unavoidable food waste. Because Dr. Morin is going to talk about different food wastage definitions and everything, but there is avoidable food waste. There is possibly avoidable food waste, but there is also unavoidable food waste. There is avoidable food waste that if you throw away a not good-looking apple or something, it's avoidable. Because if we don't like an apple appear and then we throw away, we are spoiled, we are wasteful, we are throwing it away. And then possibly avoidable, some people prefer to eat potato skins, some people do not. So possibly avoidable, similar food, you know that. And then unavoidable, like meat bones, eggshells, pineapple skin, tea bags. I just put these examples that, this is unavoidable food waste. But still, that part of the waste should not go into landfills, should not be, should not go into incinerators. Because what's happening is in every New Jersey, we have every county, they have the food waste management plans. And almost every county has their own landfills. If they don't have a landfill, they have an incinerator, okay? So that's why, and the waste, whatever is waste generated in that county, it ends up in that county landfill, or it may go into the incinerator, or some waste even is, leaving the state, ending up in New York or Pennsylvania landfills, depending on the tipping fee. And so it's because food waste is so or waste is so valuable and so $85 per ton. So everybody wants to get the waste. So again, fractions of food, inedible parts, food removed from the food supply chain. And what happens, I keep telling you, underlining that currently, yep, we do composting. We do organic waste composting, food waste composting. And so potentially we generate energy and digestate through anaerobic digestion that I will be talking in coming slides, mostly incinerated currently, disposed to sewer, landfill, or discarded some places. And so basically what happens when you send food waste to landfill, I know you know that, but it is important to underline that. We send the food waste to the landfills. Landfills are great, or they used to be great yesterday. And so probably landfill managers are not going to like what I am saying is, but basically organic waste is buried, mixed with other waste, okay? And then organic waste generates biogas or landfill gas in the landfill case. And then it gets a lot of contaminants also because it gets mixed with other waste, siloxanes especially. And then what happens, landfills try to recover the landfill gas and not 100%. Because landfill gas recovery efficiency differs from landfill age and also landfill technology, gas recovery technology. The highest landfill gas recovery potentially 85, 90%. But there are even landfills around the nation, they may be even 60%. So basically, in this case, what happens if you cannot recover the gas? So the other gas just leaks into the atmosphere in the methane form. As you know, landfill gas has around like 55, 60% methane. The balance is CO2 and some other impurities. And the most important part also, another part, in addition to leaking into the atmosphere in the methane form, you're not recovering the nutrients, right? And so it's such a big, loss. And basically, what happens in New Jersey's current practices, we're trying to, New Jersey, as Dr. Schlosser mentioned, we have great laws now in place. One is food waste reduction law, and also another one was signed by governor in 2020, food waste recycling law. But are they enough? Probably not. We need to do more. And so basically, the most important message from this slide that I'd like to tell you, organic waste should not be buried or underutilized. Still, we are sending a lot of residential organic waste into the landfills because the organic waste recycling law only contains or only for the commercial facilities or institutions, not the residential. This slide, I always use it, and it's just this, simple depiction. And every step from, in the example of apple, and I am sharing this, from apple orchard to, to your kitchen, every step, everybody is using fossil fuel, okay? From the orchard, and then every step we generate organic waste. And then what happens, I told you already, that waste is ending up either landfills, and then inefficiently we generate landfill gas. Even some cases, certain landfills, they don't even generate energy through landfill gas, and they're just, flaring the gas. How sad and how it's a big loss. And so why don't we close the loop in this case? We keep talking about circular economy. I'm sure you heard about that. Circular economy is basically closing the loop, and then whatever is unused, we have to send it back to the economy. So in this case, what we could do in addition to composting, so we could use organic waste from different sources, put in a digester, and then recover the gas, biogas. In this case, mostly it is not siloxane contaminated. You can almost recover 96%, 97% the gas instead of just recovering the 80% or even 70%. And And also you can recover the digestate, and then digestate can serve as a good feedstock for composting. And the liquid part and the solid parts can be separated. So that's why that's an option that, in this case, you can create a synergy between composting and anaerobic digestion industries. So as I mentioned, closing the loop is so important for resource recovery. Again, I put just a carrot example. In this case, from carrot orchard to, to the kitchen, that where the carrot soup is, and then whatever waste, every step, if we send it to the digester or a composter, we can recover and we can close the loop. That's the most important part for climate change mitigation that I am promoting, we are all promoting for that. And so it's a concept of circularity, treats food waste as a resource in this case, because obviously unavoidable. We're not trying to create systems that hungry for food waste. Please do not misunderstand that, and food waste should be reduced. Generation should be, we should be eliminating as much as possible, especially I am underlining the unavoidable food waste. Instead of sending to landfills, we have to send them to composting or digestion where applicable, because one solution may not be, solving every problem. And because we still need electricity, low carbon electricity, that's why we are promoting also energy generation from organic waste. And because we keep generating power from fossil fuels also, as you know. So even if it's a natural gas is a fossil fuel. So why don't we displace this natural gas with renewable natural gas, which is recycled methane, the same formula, right? In this case, that renewable natural gas can be upgraded into pipeline quality. Either directly you can generate power or you can inject into pipeline. And then here you go, you have the renewable natural gas instead of fossil natural gas. So in this case, you can read the slide. Circularity also defines, I told you that, waste as resource. Obviously, it's not easy, right? When you're introducing a new approaches, there are challenges, but challenge means opportunity also at the same time. There are economic, structural, operational, knowledge and behavior challenges, and the technological and also assessment is so important. We have to count the carbons correctly. I try to count the carbons also, and in my research part of my life. And we need knowledge sharing. Thanks for being here tonight. And I'm sure, hopefully, you all are going to spread the message. And and behavior change is so important when we are reducing, but also when we are recycling the organic waste. Also, when you're encouraging your decision makers in your towns or your counties is so important. Why don't you encourage and tell them that, hey, there are different methodologies, why don't we do this? And so they should be encouraged, so they should be knocking the Trenton's door maybe, and there are options that they can adopt. And obviously operational, structural, but problems can be solved. We sent the man to the moon, almost how many years ago? So these problems can be solved. Really, it's not, it's not difficult. It's maybe when you're starting any new, when you're diffusing any innovation into the economy, it takes time. You have to have the technology push, but also you have to have the policy pull. In New Jersey, at least we have that now, great policies. And then technology is not a rocket science really, and composting, anaerobic digestion. All we need to create an efficient infrastructure in New Jersey. So hopefully we are on our way and we are doing that. I mentioned you that, types of organic waste, and just to mention that farm waste, wastewater treatment facilities, suitable part of MSW. These are the organic waste that, somehow it should be utilized in certain ways. It will be mentioned by Dr. Morin, but also I wanted to underline this. Now EPA is now accepting these approaches. EPA always had that, upside down triangle, and their last resort was landfilling. But now what they're saying is anaerobic digestion and composting is the preferable, right? And then also apply to the land, and then especially also with the digestate utilization is important. So great applaud to EPA that creating this food waste scale, and it's very important. So where to, you already know the composters and composting technology. The most important part is industrial scale composting should be well taken care of, and should be well controlled, because in this state, in the past, 3 times composting failed. So we don't want to go through again. We don't want another black mark on composting. We want composting to be successful. So composting, our composting friends, New Jersey Compost Council, for example, they're spreading a lot of tons of good information. So composting on its way, seriously, and we should promote composting wholeheartedly, and it's very important. However, also digesters where applicable. So where to locate them? Large scale digesters. You cannot put digesters behind every supermarket, and because size and efficiency they go hand in hand, right? And they should be centralized, right? And where the waste is available most, right? It's important. Obviously, they should meet the permitting requirements of New Jersey State, and especially environmental protection. And the energy generation component should be supported. Maybe states should provide further incentives for cleaner energy generation, which is because that energy is much cleaner, generated much cleaner than landfill gas to energy project, right? And anytime when we generate large projects, obviously we have to pay attention to trafficking, odor. They are well controlled, but still, standalone digesters are important. There is one in Trenton Renewables, states only standalone digester, but also we can put digesters at the large farms and co-locating at the landfills. That's also a new model. In this case, landfills can receive source-separated organics. They already have the installed assets for power generation. In this case, they can receive 2 streams of waste. Dry waste can go under stir in their cells, but then if they receive the source-separated organic waste, food waste, they can put into digesters. In this case, they already have the permits or, people working in the landfills. So it will be, helping their economy going, actually, and this counties can handle that much easily. However, again, they should be receiving source-separated food waste. And then obviously wastewater treatment facilities, they already have the digesters already. The only thing is at wastewater treatment facilities, if you put food waste if you mix it with a residential waste, the digestate cannot be used for agricultural applications. They can be used for golf courses or, other applications, but not for agriculture. So there are other food waste. You can read it later, but there are not every food waste is high moisture. Okay, and so there are bones, there are nutshells, there are this, there. So there are other technologies in addition to composting and digestion. They are emerging. I am not suggesting that, but to information sharing, I put this into the slides, and there are different food waste that can be utilized with other technologies. But again, technology is emerging, but also we have to have a marketplace for whatever they're going to produce. And so it's basically, I'm sure you might have heard gasification pyrolysis, but again, I am underlining, this is not commercial yet. And gasification especially should not be should be taken seriously. It shouldn't be disguised incineration. Okay, and so it's important. And obviously, we need to integrate, waste integration planning is so important. We have to create short, midterm, and long-term plans, which New Jersey is currently on its way doing, creating efficient infrastructure for food waste recycling, commercialization. Obviously, at every stage, we need reliable data, we need science and innovation. And outreach and education, thanks to Dr. Schlosser, this kind of outreach education, is very, very important. And short-term planning and the decision makers, they should engage early and they should be invited to, they should get the message early. I mean, I'm not saying for New Jersey. New Jersey is doing great. Please don't misunderstand, but nationwide, I'm talking about. And obviously, avoiding contamination. When you're putting in your kitchen waste or wherever, in the cafeteria waste, and so we shouldn't mix with packaging and food waste in the same bin. And so residential organic food waste source separation is not happening yet. So, but still, we should not contaminate the waste. Of organic waste. Obviously, Dr. Morin is going to talk about labeling and traceability and further. And so at every stage, we have to think innovatively. Mid and long-term plannings, again, thinking is, and then involvement is important, and research and development and demonstration projects are so important. Maybe we should demonstrate one digestion and landfill combination. In this case, we can transform existing landfills for the 21st century needs. So in this case, landfills can clean up their acts basically because they could stop leaking into the atmosphere. So if they put all the organics in a digester separately, they can recover and then they can reduce their carbon footprint. So, and conclusions, and we should, we're going to discuss this extensively after Dr. Morin talks about things. It's important to displacing fossil fertilizers with, organic fertilizers, composting, digestate, and sustainable food products should be labeled. That will be mentioned. So the most important is, where applicable, we should be composting and digesting the food waste and recovering as much possible as benefits from that. Thanks for your interest. And this is actually, we are trying to create this for sustainable food supply chain. It's important that how, during the food supply chain, waste and energy generation, they are so important. Sorry about that. I have to have some water. Well, again, thanks for your interest, and I'm here to answer any questions, discuss anything, questions, concerns. Please, let me know.
Thank you very much, Dr. Duran. If you would like to ask questions, now is the time.
Yes.
I don't think we can talk about food waste without talking about restaurants.
Yeah, we can't
Yes.
hear you. I mean, like,
Wait.
let's start again. No one can hear you, Sandy. Hold on.
Yeah.
Thank you. As I said, I don't think we can talk about food waste without talking about restaurants. And restaurants that give enormous portions that people don't finish. Maybe a lot of us take them home, but a lot of it probably goes into the garbage. And it seems like they would be like a natural first step to start a movement to separate food waste properly and start being able to contribute to landfills in a proper way.
You underlined very important matter, and actually New Jersey's food waste recycling law that signed by Governor Murphy in 2020 includes restaurants, any establishment. If they generate more than 52 tons a year food waste, they have to source separate it and then send it to recycling facility. It could be composting, it could be digestion within the 25 miles radius. If there is no facility, and then it's going to end up in the landfills. However, we're trying to create a good infrastructure in New Jersey so that exactly restaurant waste. But obviously, we should not waste it, and the plates are large, especially, New Jersey plates are large. Holiday time, we are wasting more food, sports events, hospitals, and airports, you name it. And so we don't even know what's going on in the correction facilities. And so some hospitals, for example, they started offering menus for the patients, at least, so that not if a patient comes out from an operation, they don't bring any more. Some of them, they still do that, but some of them, they don't bring a whole tray, yogurt, packaged sandwich, and then the patient cannot even have a soup, and then everything goes to waste. But now hospitals are doing good now. So they're offering menus, for example. So you will talk more.
I'll talk a little bit about that, yes.
Yeah, thanks. It's important, yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Garbage disposals. A lot of people say, oh, I have a garbage disposal and I feel like I'm doing good. I'm being environmentally responsible using that.
Garbage disposal. Okay, that's interesting what you said. It's basically, again, Xenia is going to mention about waste management's core facility, but what it is basically, it's similar. At home, we are doing that garbage disposal thing. What you're doing is basically, macerating the food waste is going down to drain and it's ending in the wastewater treatment facility's digester. So what happens when it reaches to that digester? You generate biogas. Okay, but that biogas has siloxanes contamination because it's mixed with other residential waste, bathroom waste, and so on and so forth. A lot of pharmaceuticals, a lot of heavy metals in that waste. So that can be digested. However, as I mentioned, the biosolids cannot be used for agriculture or digested. So it's treated and then it ends up wherever. And so, or they can be composted, but then cannot be used for agricultural. So they can be used for golf courses and so on and so forth. So that is why, that's why I am trying to encourage wastewater treatment facilities to separate organic waste and residential waste. And then I have one of them in my kitchen, unfortunately. It's easy to use it, but not the environmentally friendly way. Yeah. Thank you.
I think there was a question. in the
Yes,
back.
there was a question in the back.
Yes, I want to thank you for your very informative talk, and it's inspiring to see the kind of technology that is afoot. But my question is, when the law passes, how can it be policed?
That's also a very important matter. And how would it's currently food waste. We don't want to put too much value and the food waste so that people should not generate more waste, because if there is a monetary value, you know what I mean? So usually waste, you pay the hauler or whoever is taking waste from you, you pay. And then, so that means that you try to reduce your waste generation per ton, or townships are paying for the, so you pay taxes, your township is paying, this is how it works. The policing, so I know Trenton Renewables they told me that they see certain, contamination. If you are talking about the contamination-wise policing, but then some of our food waste is ending up in northern Jersey. What I heard, my students were doing some research, and then it crosses the border and then leaves to another state. So our resources are ending up in other states. It's in New Jersey. Please don't accuse me for interstate commercial law or anything. But policing takes a lot of layers, and I am not in that part. I'm not a state. I'm a state, civil servant as a state employee, but I don't know how to police that part. But again, the most important is people should believe in climate change mitigation. People should believe in sustainability. In that case, they would do a good job. That's how I would bring that. Self-policing is the most important part. I don't want to be in trouble with interstate commerce clause or anything, please. Yeah.
Yes, yes, that's very important.
Yes, it is important. Yes.
You mentioned in your talk that composting had failed. Was there because I had heard a few years ago that we were going to try curbside composting, and then I never heard any more about it. Had that been tried in some communities and did it fail?
Okay, what I am mentioning is not this, community composting. It was 3 commercial facilities failed in like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. That's what I am referring to. Please, I don't want to misspeak or anything, and I don't want to misinform you. No, community composting, it's good. I am promoting that, and so please don't misunderstand. Because industrial scale composting, and it is so important. You have to control the runoffs. Because food waste has a lot of moisture, okay? And so that means that odor is so important. And then you have to avoid the, nuisance little animals that, mice or rats or something. And so it's so important that also you have to take care of very efficiently, because if you don't mix them, efficiently, you may have methane pockets occurring because it's so that's why. But now composting industry advanced a lot last 15 years. No, I mean, like a lot industrial scale, I'm talking about,
Right.
Large scale. In fact, another big composting facility in Delaware, Delmarva composting facility also failed, and they had to shut down, not only in New Jersey. And so, yeah, composting industry experienced some, negative experiences, but now they are doing great. And obviously, what is this? That kind of materials also covering them, and then aerating compost piles. And so these are important. Even at Rutgers, what we're doing, we're composting our cafeteria waste. I have a project from government-funded project. We have a composter, and at our research farm, it's in vessel. Okay, because it's in campus setting, you don't want to have open air composting. Okay, it's in vessel, aerated and well mixed. And yesterday when we were talking about that, they were asking us whether or not if we have any mice running around, because it's food waste. You have to be very, very careful. No, we are good. And so we don't experience any odor problem, animal problem or anything. Yeah, you have to do it in a more innovative way.
Okay, because I know I've been encouraging people in my circle of contacts and at church to use, for instance, packaging that is compostable. But honestly, it doesn't. If you don't have commercial composting, I think it's just going into a landfill anyway.
You underline an important thing. It's part of my research project. What we're doing currently, we are composting compostables. And we will publish those findings soon. And so we are not just doing composting, but we are, several, portions of, food waste, animal manure, wood chips, or compostables, whether or not they are delivering what they're promising, those compostables, and and other things. And then also we're going to do also this month, hopefully, biosolids from pure food waste. Whether or not it's going to compost quickly, in this case, can we generate synergy between digestion industry and composting industry so that they can coexist instead of running around and securing the food waste for their, projects? Maybe there is a, synergy between them.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah, I haven't heard about the digestive thing, but maybe you'll be getting into that a little bit or something.
Yeah, we're going to have more questions after Dr. Moran speaks.
Great.
So please hold your other questions for now. Thank you very much, Dr. Guran. That was very interesting, and we'll be happy to hear more about. I originally heard Dr. Guran talk about the Rutgers composter, and it was a very fascinating presentation with a lot of faculty doing research about how their progress. So it's very interesting. And afterwards, we'll talk about curbside composting, which I have some information about. Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Xenia Morin. After she'll talk, we'll have some more questions, and then a demonstration of home composting we'll be able to see by a member of the East Brunswick Environmental Commission, Catherine Nguyen. Dr. Xenia Morin is in the School of Environmental and Biological Sciences. She's an associate teaching professor in the Rutgers Department of Plant Biology. She's also a member of Rutgers Climate Institute, the Institute for Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Sciences, and the Center for Agricultural Food Ecosystems at the Institute for Food, Nutrition, and Health, where I'm also a member. So without further ado, Dr. Morin.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you, Serpil, for your talk. Show of hands, and if you're online, you can use an emoji or put a comment in. How many of you have thought about food waste on a daily basis over the last week? Hey, you guys are the minority, so good for you. And I hope I can illuminate and add to your current knowledge and your current practices. But first, I want to kind of zoom out and look at a planetary level. I'm going to talk about the problem in a slightly different way and why it matters, and then what you can do. The definitions are always a challenge, and Serpil asked me to kind of go over this. There's food loss, you'll hear food waste, you'll hear food wastage. What I've not put on here is food surplus. And so food loss refers to the decrease in mass, so the dry matter or nutritional quality of the food that was originally intended for consumption, whereas food waste refers to appropriate human consumption being discarded, whether or not it's kept beyond its expiration date or not. And then wastage is that combination of both food waste and food loss. But I will say that much of when we're talking about food waste is not food waste until it is actually thrown out. It is food surplus. And that what we have in this country is a surplus of food, and we're trying to figure out what to do with it. And so when we think about it, we also need to distinguish, as Dr. Karan talked earlier, about what is edible and what is inedible for humans. And so when we look around the world and look throughout this supply chain, about 10% of the food that is produced with the intention of humans eating it is inedible, whereas 90% could be eaten. When you get to your household, though, it is slightly different. About 70% is actually edible. When you're doing that processing of your food, getting it all ready, you may lose up to 30%. So when we say avoid food waste, there are certain kinds of food waste that are not easily avoided. Now, the problem itself is an international problem. How many of you have heard of the Sustainable Development Goals? The Sustainable Development Goals came out of the United Nations, and the 12th one is about responsible consumption. And when you dig down deeper, there's something called Target 12.3, which is to reduce food waste around the globe by 50%. And so we are a part of an international endeavor. And in 2015, so almost 9 years ago, the Obama administration declared that it would set as a goal 50% food waste reduction by the year 2030. Now, we've only got 6 years to go. And so I'm less of a let's go the long term. I'm here to say we got to step it up, and we've got to put our foot on the accelerator. And that means each and every one of us has to do something while these technologies, while these broader things are going on. around the world, that number of about 30% is wasted happens for lots of different reasons. But what we need to understand is the context here. And if you haven't already heard from what we said before, the reason we need to tackle this is we are wasting resources. Now, the extent to which we are wasting resources was captured in this EPA graphic, which I quite like. The greenhouse gas emissions that we waste, that we create because of food waste in the United States is equivalent to 42 coal-fired power plants. Does that surprise you, that number? That's a huge number, right? The amount of water and energy is enough to supply more than 50 million homes. There are only 129 million occupied homes in the United States. So we're talking almost, 35%. So if we could capture and not waste all that water, that energy, we'd have other energy for the rest of our communities. The amount of fertilizer that we lose through the food waste that we're losing is equivalent to the amount that we use to grow all food in the United States for our own consumption. It's a huge amount. And when we put it in the area of how much space we actually throw out, it's equivalent to New York State combined with California. Now, a stat that's not on here and that you will see if you rent the movie that's at the back here in the room in Wasted is the equivalent of going to the grocery store, grabbing 3 bags of groceries, and by the time you've got home, you only have 2 bags. That's what you're throwing away. Okay, so we've got a big problem here, but it is tackleable. People have researched where the greenhouse gas emission comes from, and this is a somewhat complicated graphic, but it's in this EPA report from 2021. And it says it's a combination of carbon dioxide and other potent greenhouse gases. So if you're talking about production, we're also thinking about the nitrogen fertilizer, that's the nitric oxide that goes into the air. We're talking about methane when you get to the consumer level, as you've already heard from the landfill. And so what we are looking at is not only CO2 being produced, but nitrous oxide and methane, which is heating the planet, and we need to stop. I like this diagram. You've probably never seen a diagram like this, but I want you to focus on the green section at the bottom. That is the household waste that comes from our residential sector. The blue is food service, and the red is the food retail. And you were asking about, what are the sectors we need to be focusing on? And I would say all of the above. Now, where I've got that arrow on the right side, that is the amount of food waste that ends up in the landfill. And you can see a lot of it comes from households and equally food service. A smaller amount is actually food retail. And then the stuff that's above on the right side are the other ways, the composting, the digesters, other ways that we can handle this. And so zeroing in on diversion of food waste from the landfills, both from food service and households, should be a goal of every single person here. Whether you are an eater in the house or eater out of the house, thinking about what happens. We can talk about packaging, but that's a whole nother talk for a whole nother day. So why does this matter? The EPA report did a really good job articulating why we need to reduce, but I'm also going to introduce another thing: prevent food waste. So often it's like, what do we do with the food waste once we get it? I want us to think upstream about how we're preventing it to begin with. So as you heard, food security is a big issue. And so is there a way for the food that we're not going to eat, which I would still call food surplus, because no one wants to eat food waste. If I said, here, I've got some food waste for you, would you eat it? No, right? So let's start calling it food surplus and say, I have food surplus. Can I share my surplus with you? I think reframing that can help. It is going to foster more productivity and economic efficiencies. It's going to promote our conservation of resources and energy, which we know more and more are becoming more critical. But what the EPA didn't talk about is it's also going to prevent more land use change that is preventable. So if we reduce the amount of surplus food we're making, we don't have to cut down our forests. We don't have to grow food in places that we shouldn't be growing food. And that will mean that we can increase biodiversity. So there's a conservation message here as well. Now, the amount of food that we wasted, we saw in Yvette's slides at the beginning, 100 pounds or so, 100 kilograms. Depends how you measure it. And in fact, you'll see on the right-hand side, there's kind of lots of different sources and the numbers just keep going up and up and up. And so depending on how it's measured, we can come up with, it's above 100 kilograms and it's up to 300. Why does this matter? Well, if you recall, it said we're going to reduce food waste by 50%. Guess what? We really didn't have a good baseline. So we're kind of winging it, but that's okay. As long as it's going down rather than up, we are in the winning situation. So we want to keep driving those numbers down. So what can we do? So when we think about reducing food waste and loss, we have some motivations. One is it can be more money in your pocket. As everyone knows, food prices have gone up. And so the less food that you waste, the more likely you are going to have extra money in your pocket. And in fact, the EPA did studies about 10 years ago to show that some families were saving at least $1,000 a year by focusing on prevention strategies. That number is probably higher, but I haven't seen recent numbers. Now, Serpil mentioned the upside down triangle, and if anyone has been at a food waste talk before, you might have seen this graphic. It's called the food recovery hierarchy. And the idea is what's at the top are the practices that you want to engage in the most, and then the landfill is at the bottom. That's the one you least want to engage in. Now, I'll show the updated graphic in a minute. I still like this one in part because it starts with source reduction. So can we have less surplus food that we're creating? The next is feed hungry people. And that is, how do we share our food surplus people with those that are not getting adequate food and nutrition? Another piece is feed animals. So I have a question for you. Any of you have animals at home that you feed your food waste to? What do you have? Pardon? Guinea pigs. How many of you? I remember having guinea pigs with my kids, those carrot toppings and other things, right? Well, I have chickens, and chickens are part of my food waste recovery. And in fact, the eggshells, they love to eat. Yeah. So I have pets that make breakfast, but they also are part of my food reduction strategy. So we've got a good relationship going on. Now, we've often talked about food surplus, but there are some true food waste. So all of our fast food restaurants, that oil that they cook those fabulous French fries and other things that you like, that oil already has a pathway to be recycled. So oils, fats, and grease need to be picked up. We don't put it through the sewer. And so we do have a model where there's some success. You may have remembered the people that were trying to retrofit their cars and they smelled like a fast food restaurant going down the street, right? That was food waste recycling. So those are some of the industrial uses, to take those fats and oils and turn it into energy. And so we need more. Composting is next. How many of you compost at home? Show of hands. Okay, that's wonderful. I have some composting as well. And then there's the landfill. And again, we want to think twice before we put any of our surplus food or food waste into that garbage can. Now, why are we losing food at the household level? First is lack of awareness, right? We've always done this. Let's just throw it out, get rid of it, move on. That's been our culture for a while. Now, not everyone has that. We know that those that are more affluent waste more food. And so as your budget shrinks, you're going to be much more mindful of what you were buying and what you were doing. But for a long time, Americans have had cheap food. And so, yes, we have been throwing things away instead of counting the dollars that we're losing. And so as food prices are going up, and I may be in the minority, I actually think it's a good thing that some of our food prices have gone up, because we are asking, what is the value of that food? We are suddenly starting to engage and think food matters. Food is much more valuable. We cannot be throwing it away. Another reason we tend to waste food in our households is we all have busy, crazy lives, and we are not necessarily good at planning for when we're going to go grab a meal with someone, or suddenly be asked out, or come home with that plate that is 3 times the size it was 40 years ago. Our plate sizes and our serving sizes have expanded 3 times. I don't think our stomachs have expanded 3 times. So we're bringing food back. And we haven't got that cultural practice of going out and sharing a plate, but many restaurants will share plates so that you don't have to come home with as much food. There's also confusion over the dates that we find on our food, and I'm going to talk about it. Now, a reasonable reason to get rid of food is spoilage. It's no longer palatable, it's no longer edible, or we're concerned about food poisoning. And then, how many of you shop at a big box store and you see something that says on sale, right? That marketing piece, come, you can get a really wonderful deal, right? Now, unless you have a really big family or really good neighbors that you share food with, you're probably buying much more than you need for your household. And so a lot of those deals turn out not to be deals. And so I want you to be aware of the marketing that is making you impulsive when you go to the store and grab something that you weren't planning to buy or prepare. And those bulk purchases, when I'm standing in line at my big box store and I'm looking around and I'm like, wow, who are you feeding at home? Now, sometimes it's a teenage boy that's eating them out of house and home. Okay, that's great, no problem. But many people don't have that. And then the other thing is, when we are preparing for our family and friends, we usually overbuy or overcook, because the worst thing that could happen is we run out of food, right? And so there's an anxiety around entertaining and seeming generous and sharing. And for some of us, that's part of our food culture. But what I'm going to argue is, think about what that menu is and what you are going to do with the food surplus. And so at many of my events now, there are doggy bags so people can go home with that food, because I can't eat it when there's only one other person, but I send food home with people. Or I think about some of my older friends and relations who may need meals, and I make meals and send those home. So again, you can take that over preparation and do something with it for good in your community. This is a little hard to read. I actually have to turn around here. The gray bars are the bars of things that are thrown out the most in households. And so they're the vegetables, they're the fruits, the breads that go stale, unless you're buying long-lived breads. This information is less important with this than you doing an assessment in your own household. I don't know if any of you were like, it's garbage day tomorrow, so let me clear out the fridge. What I want you to do is start looking and seeing what are you throwing out regularly, and think about, how can I buy less, or how can I do more with what was in my fridge before, so that you are not throwing out so much. Now, where this ties into sustainable diets is it also goes back to what it takes to produce the food. Remember, we were told when we throw out food, we're throwing out energy, we're throwing out water, we're throwing out the associated fertilizer. I would also add pesticides if that was used to produce the food. We know that animal agriculture produces a lot of greenhouse gases at the top here, beef in particular, but it's also lamb, goats, any ruminants. Poultry is next, then dairy products, and then down below, fruits, vegetables, grains. And again, you're invited to go, if for those of you that are in the room, enjoy some of those more sustainable diets. We're not saying eliminate this totally, but if you are going to eat these higher greenhouse gas foods, make sure you eat them all. Please do not throw them out, okay? So again, intention and planning are going to help right-size your own food footprint. So when I say planning, what do I mean? I mean, and I'm not always good at this, so I'm still working on it, and I think some of us are better at this than others, but it is to make a shopping list based on the meals you plan to eat. Some of you may just be, I have a set of food that I want to eat, but I'm going to encourage you to actually think about your meals that you want. And then think about, are you eating out? And don't buy for those meals. We've gotten into the habit of maybe going shopping once a week. One of the chefs that I know shops more often on the way home. And so if you're passing a grocery store on your way home, or you can walk, go and shop more often. You will make less food waste because you know what you're doing. Think about serving sizes. Think about the people in your household. Do they like leftovers? Or don't they like leftovers, right? Do you want that grab and go? And in fact, have containers to make them serving sizes so they can just grab and heat it up and do what they want. Try to resist those impulses. I mean, yes, the grocery stores want you to be impulsive. Wherever you go shopping, they want you to be impulsive, but buy what you need and think twice about those extra things that you were buying. And then for the things that you are not going to eat right away, if you can freeze them, your freezer is your friend because you can manage that excess. But you have to have a system to remember what's in the fridge too, okay, and the freezer. Now, with respect to leftovers, some of you, I am sure, are amazing chefs and can look in your fridge and say, I can make all of this into a meal. Our younger people in particular don't have those skills. So make sure you get one of those tickets for the drawing for the book. You can give it to someone who isn't there, and you can go from there. And then the other thing is, there are, for those of you here, there are some stickers. And one of the things is to do eat first basket or drawer in your fridge, so you know what is going to be thrown out if you don't eat it in the next day or two. So have cycle things in your fridge. Don't let them hide in the back. Bring them forward and put stickers or other things on there.
Stickers are in the table.
Yeah.
In the table.
So Yvette's given me the wrap up, so I'm going to wrap up after I go over the dates because I know this is really important to you. So on most of our packaging, there are dates with various language. One of the things we're working on nationally is trying to create less consumer confusion. So I'm going to teach you how to read the dates a little bit differently. So if you have something that says expiration date, that truly is a date that says it is going to go bad or it will not work at the level that you would expect, okay? The only exceptions, and there are a few little exceptions, are yeast and baking powder. You know how you can buy a yeast package, especially if you're keeping it in the fridge, it's probably fine. You just may not get the same rising. Now, you may see things like sell by date and use by date. Does this sound familiar? Yeah, I'm seeing some nods, right? So the sell by date in some states, and only 22 states in the country have food labeling at the state level. The sell by date was to make sure that grocery stores and bodegas and all the smaller things got things out of the store by a certain date, because people are always worried, how long is it been sitting on there? Okay. That is something that you really need to look at in the grocery store. But it also guarantees that there's a certain shelf life afterwards. And this is for the more perishable goods. And you'll have to decide based on how it's looking, how it's smelling, all of those things, how much longer it goes. The use by date is a quality label. This is what the manufacturer thinks is peak quality. Now, you can eat it after the use by date. Depending on how it's stored, it could be good literally for years sometimes. And so there is a wonderful website, moremealslessweight.com, that you can look at to learn more about these. So the expiration date is the one to pay the most attention to. If you're going to do that, it's for things like vitamins and drugs and baby formula. So if anyone's using baby formula, this is important, okay? But the other ones, less important, okay? The final thing I'm going to wrap up here is that we never want you to compromise food safety while you are trying to prevent food loss. So know the causes of food poisoning and know when to throw things out. There's the if in doubt, throw it out. That's totally fine. No one wants you to get sick, okay? So food safety first, but the rest is about food quality and peak quality. So I'm gonna stop there. And there are other slides, so if a question comes up, I can do that. And the one thing I want to do is tell you that there are food keeper apps that you can use. I have products here I can talk about. There's also a group called Ample Harvest. If you are a home gardener and you have too many zucchinis, anyone happen? Or if you have too many tomatoes, this is a website, ampleharvest.org. You can donate your fresh food to a local food pantry. I did a quick search of this area. There are many places you can take your excess food products from there. So, so yes. Okay, that needs to be updated then on their website. So I'm going to leave it here for the questions.
Thank you very much. In the interest of time, we had one more thing about composting.
Let me get there.
And
yeah, so there's different, well,
we actually have a video prepared.
So it's 2 minutes. Let's
composting.
watch that and then take questions.
Yes, let's take.
Hi, I'm an East Brunswick, New Jersey resident, and I'm a home composter. My name is Catherine Nguyen, and I'm a legacy composter. My family tree has composted since the dawn of time. It's really, really easy. In fact, it's easier than taking out the trash because compost done right doesn't even smell. There are only 2 tools you really need, a bucket and a shovel. Simply move your food scraps, minus any plastic wrappers or stickers, into the bucket in your kitchen. The compost can be any food matter that is plant-based. Meat and dairy should not go in. Eggshells are very good for the compost. Once your compost bucket fills, you bring it to the backyard in an inconspicuous area. This compost pile started as a hole about 2 to 3 feet deep and about 1.5 feet wide. It's a heap now, which is just fine. You see the hole in the center. You dump your compost. And then you bury it back up. Compost is a natural process, so it doesn't take much work, and nature does the rest. In about 6 months, you will have garden soil available as it deteriorates. The finished compost has no smell, and it can be added to your garden as a great soil amendment to enrich your plants. I've been composting enough where my family garbage has been reduced. Some weeks we don't even put out the trash. Thank you for watching, and learn more on Facebook at Sustainable East Brunswick Area and Beyond.
For allowing us to see this simple process, but many of us have not adopted it, but it's certainly someplace that we could go.
Yep.
Questions on Xenia's presentation?
I think we need a microphone, so there.
Yeah.
I just have one question. When you showed the chart with the beef and the chicken, there was no fish on there.
So it depends on the kind of fish. It turns out that our seafood is one of the more perishable items. It's usually shipped frozen to our grocery stores, and it's thrown out pretty quickly. And so a lot of it's happening at the retail level, and a lot of people don't necessarily come back. So the amount of energy that's used in the cold storage is probably the biggest component of that. And it, again, depends if it's a local fish and where it is. So I've seen a wide variety of numbers. So that's a great question. But again, with seafood, if you can persuade your retailer not to thaw the fish, and you can bring the fish home frozen if it's already been frozen, and then you can thaw it when you're ready, you are less likely to waste your seafood. Other questions? I wanted to add, if I could just add, there is now kitchen machinery to create compost in your kitchen as well. There are at least 4 or 5 different things. If you go on to your favorite retailer and you search home compost in the kitchen, there are now pieces of equipment, because that works well in the spring and the summer. You can put out stuff, but nothing's happening in the winter. So we need a winter option in our place. And they're about this size. They can fit very well on your kitchen counter. So.
They do require energy though. So if you're trying to reduce, energy consumption, then.
Yeah. So put those solar panels out, okay?
The-
And then
the-
you do it on a
the
sunny day.
Outdoor composting is a more passive energy method. I'm sorry, I want to, the last question, and we have one more very quick presentation about what we're doing in East Brunswick locally regarding compost.
So spoilage is a biological phenomenon.
Mhm.
So it may well be amenable to genetic manipulation.
Yes, in fact, it has been done in apples. The Arctic apple is a genetically modified apple that prevents spoilage. So it's already in the works, at least that one thing I know.
Okay, we have one more presentation about what is being done locally in East Brunswick, because all of you want to hear about that. And I just wanted to introduce Liti Harmati, who's She wears many hats in East Brunswick. She's the chair of the East Brunswick Sustainability Task Force, the vice chair of the East Brunswick Environmental Commission, and the co-founder of the Friends of the East Brunswick Environmental Commission. She's active in local to global environmental education, citizen science, and conservation. Liti has graciously agreed to talk to us. Oh, and by the way, she's also a researcher at the Department of Marine and Coastal Sciences at Rutgers. I'm sorry, I neglected that. That's just what she does, to pay the bills. In her spare time, yes. She's graciously agreed to talk to us at very late notice and about what's being done locally regarding recycling, the community garden, and everything else.
Thank you, Yvette. It's working. So thank you, Yvette, for inviting me and for the very late notice. It's all good. I can talk about this in my sleep, so it's not a problem. I just a quick personal thing. In 1988, I got myself a little gift, which was a bumper sticker that said, think globally, act locally. And all the presentations here and what I'm going to tell you just reminded me of that. And I still have a similar sticker on my car. And those words became actually the tagline for everything we do under the umbrella of the Environmental Commission and the subcommittees. So we didn't talk much about growing your own food, but I'll just mention that we have a very successful community garden in East Brunswick. We have 160 plots. I think for this year, they're all taken. But I invite everybody to come visit the garden. It's basically just here behind the municipal building. And as Yvette mentioned earlier, at the community garden, we compost all our organic waste. So it's not food waste, but it's waste from the garden. We talked a lot about composting, and I don't know if everybody knows, you can buy compost bins for your backyard through the Middlesex County. I have a flyer on the table over there, and you can just scan the QR code and it will give you all the information. They have different size bins, and the process of buying them is very simple. I got a new compost bin about a year ago from them. They're good quality and they're subsidized, so the price is really not much. Talking about food waste, so of course it's better to make your own food at home, but we all get takeout sometimes. And when we get takeout, of course it comes in containers, and that unfortunately usually end up in the landfill. What the Sustainability Task Force is trying to do now is to educate people to not take the plastic utensils that sometimes just go from the restaurant right to the landfill. We don't even use them if we eat the food at home. So we're doing it in two ways. One is to tell restaurants to ask people who get takeout, who order takeout, if they need those utensils. And on the other side, we're telling residents, when you order takeout, tell the restaurant you don't need those utensils. If you want to know anything more about this, Holly here is leading this project and she can tell you more. Last thing I'll just mention very quickly is our free cycling events. And if you want to know more about free cycling, Shireen is here and she can tell you. We do free cycling events, and that's just about, getting preventing stuff from getting to the landfill. And we're asking people to bring usable items and people can come and get them. And we recently started also collecting different items that we send for things that are not recycled, that cannot be put in your recycling bins. And we collect them and send them to be recycled. We just started a new project recently where we're collecting markers and pens and crayons, and with a wonderful donation from Brunswick Memorial Home, we can now collect markers and pens and send them to TerraCycle for proper recycling. So there's a lot more going on that we're doing. We always look for new ideas. We always look for help. Just visit our website, friendsebc.com. And all the information is in there, and you can contact us, and you can thank Sandy here for maintaining the website. So, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah.
I just want to give a shout out. There's a group of kids from East Brunswick that have started a project, and they have bins in almost all the schools. They're collecting used notebooks and they're remaking them into new notebooks. And then they're donating them to help families in need, backpacks for families in need, so that those kids can have notebooks. So that's a really great project. And it's a group of kids from town that have started that. And I also want to say something nobody mentioned about, but the idea, there are still farms in East Brunswick, and a lot of people don't realize it. And shopping locally is a big help. There's no packaging. There's very little carbon footprint going to buy this stuff, and it helps sustain those farms and keep them in business. So look up the local farms and try to shop locally this year.
Right,
And the produce is better.
Yeah.
I used to farm in my backyard. I used to grow vegetables in my backyard and fight with the animals. And now I drive a mile and a half and, support a farmer and shop locally, and the produce is great. So.
Right, and we've featured foods on the back table which are sustainable, except the strawberries. We wanted to feature a locally, it's not from the local farm, but in the end of June, Jim Marisi Farm and some other farms in the area have very, very good local. They do, okay, so maybe from their greenhouses, because it's usually in season in June. Yeah, but it wasn't early. Yes. Really? Okay. Right, so the strawberries, they do have, are known as not to be that sustainable, because they do require a lot of fungicides, but they are local, so shop locally. Thank you very much, Liti, for your updating us on what we're doing. And if you could sign, if you want more information about any of these topics, please sign. There's a sheet that's Holly has that's going around with your name and email. Thank you very much for our speakers. And if you have more questions, obviously, I'm sure they'll be willing to answer, but we do have to start wrapping up the broadcast. And please, Dr. Moran mentioned about giving away to friends and neighbors. We're packaging the snacks in the back table for anybody who wants to take something home. And whatever isn't taken will be donated.
Thanks for organizing. Great event. Thanks to you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming.